Hi everybody, this is Football Hut, the amazing, spectacular, terrific, the great one, the people's champion. Your host, the Hut, and welcome back to the Football Hut, and hopefully you like this video. And hit that subscribe button. As you know, one of the sort of victims of cancel culture was a lot of things were sort of renamed over the last, well really back in 2021, 22. A lot of products on the shelves were renamed or just faces that you remember as a kid were taken off the shelves, like the lady on the the butter containers, and of course Ancient Mama was taken off. The boxes. You don't see any of the sort of the beautiful faces that you used to see when you were growing up. And of course, in sports, we saw a lot of this sort of wokeness interfere with the fun of a lot of fan bases. The one thing I would mention, just as I start this video, nobody asked the fans of these teams if they wanted to see the names changed. Nobody asked Cleveland Indian fans, would you want to see the name of the team get changed? Nobody asked. They just changed it, and they changed it to something that's so odd. Named that, the name Guardians is named after two government statues in Cleveland. Well, it didn't mean anything. It doesn't mean anything. And instead of keeping the name Indians, they changed that. And of course, the Washington Redskins, the old ownership was basically bullied out of the NFL, bullied to sell the team, and bullied to change the name, and he was defiant to the end. He changed it from the Washington Redskins to the Washington Football Team. Then eventually they named them the Washington Commanders. He never should have done any of that. Said, F you, I'm not going to change anything. He didn't do that. He sort of and then they did nothing but bully the guy for years. Between the sports media and the heavy, the mainstream media, they bullied that guy out of the NFL, and he had to sell the team. Well, the new ownership has now the Washington Commanders. They have a very good team. They have a good young quarterback. And President Trump has talked about how Washington should go back to its original name, the Redskins, because a lot of Native Americans love the team, and a lot of fans love that name and love the history and the culture of it. And now the Indians, it seems that the Guardians president, Chris Antonetti, does not want to change the name. They talk about branding, a whole bunch of nonsense. They're afraid to do it. They're afraid to do it. I think eventually they will change it slowly, and a lot of it has to do with selling product and selling shirts and hats, and they don't want to say we're not going to have them named the Guardians anymore, because then people will stop buying the stuff. But it seems that the Commanders, the Washington ownership group, is considering going back to the Redskins. If they did that, they would make so much money off the hats and all the jerseys and everything. People would be happy to have it back. Well, here's an article from Outkick. Washington Commanders ownership reportedly considering reinstating Redskins name thanks to Trump. Commanders ownership is reportedly nervous about President's leverage over a $3.7 billion stadium deal on federal land. So this is what he's holding over them. Could the Washington Redskins be making a comeback? That's the possibility raised by a new report from the New York Post, which claims the current Washington Commanders ownership is strongly considering restoring the original nickname, and it's out of fear that President Trump could get involved in stopping or delaying their all-important new stadium deal. So this is supposedly some kind of deal with the NFL as well, that he might pressure them as well to get them to change the name back. A lot of it has to do with sort of not turning our backs on the history. That's what it is. Trump recently spoke derisively of the Commanders' nickname, saying the franchise is now the Washington whatevers. Well, it's more like the Washington Denskins. That's what Rush Limbaugh used to call them, the Washington Denskins. That's what they were. On Truth Social, Trump said the Washington whatevers should immediately change their name back to the Washington Redskins football team. There's a big clamor for this. Likewise, the Cleveland Indians, one of the 6 original baseball teams they storied past. They're one of the original American League teams, okay? Along with the Highlanders, the Red Sox, the Tigers, the A's. Our great Indian people in massive numbers want this to happen. Their heritage and prestige is systematically being taken away from them. Times are different now than they were 3 or 4 years ago. We are a country of passion and common sense. Owners get it done. In another post, he threatened to put a restriction on the organization. I may put a restriction on them if they don't change the name back to the original Washington Redskins and get rid of the ridiculous moniker. Washington Commanders, I won't make a deal for them to build a stadium in Washington. Wow. Josh Harris and David Biltzer, current lead owners, have reportedly taken those words to heart. Well, they should. After Trump's post, Harris and Biltzer have been privately warning business associates that the White House does indeed have some leverage over their plans to build a new $3.7 billion stadium for the team. They're really getting nervous about Trump's attacks and how they might impact the stadium deal. The government's leverage is that the stadium is technically on federal land, making it conceivable that Trump would have some power over stadium arrangements, though current ownership has publicly stated that they intend to keep the Commander's name in place for the foreseeable future. It's doubtful that Trump really would prevent team ownership from building a new stadium if they don't change the nickname. But it's a sign of the change in culture and rapid erosion of woke ideology that Harris and Biltzer are seriously considering bringing back the Washington Redskins. Perhaps most importantly, it is a sign that woke left-wing sports writers have lost much of their power, and it's about time they do. For years, if not decades, the mob run by the puritanical left has used their platforms to enforce their ideological demands, conform or face the consequences of criticism and more outrage from an organized social media tantrum. Few Washington football fans cared about the nickname or wanted it changed. The Commander's name has no value, no meaning, and no history. Same thing with the Guardians. The Redskins nickname does, and the owners should realize by now that they don't have to bow to the mob. The USA Today sports section has no power or influence over anyone, let alone their bottom line. You know who does. Fans will spend their hard-earned money to buy tickets, buy hats, buy T-shirts, jerseys, foam fingers, all this stuff. You have the power. Fans have the power. I also would say that I think, and it's a concern for me, is that I think all these independent people, all these different independent podcasters, all these different independent YouTubers and stuff, they're having an influence too. And they're pulling all that influence away from the mainstream. Now, it's a concern to me, as somebody that's independent, somebody that doesn't, talk to anybody, in the mainstream, sports media, is that they are coming into my space, into my world. Okay? As you see, I got the baseball HUD. They're all here now, okay? And the problem with that is I'm competing with them now, which I wasn't before. There was no competition. I was just competing with these no talent YouTubers on the baseball side. But when you have athletes coming in here, when you have football players coming in here, or baseball players coming in here, or you have coaches doing podcasts or managers doing podcasts, and then you see these reporters coming in like just use the baseball side, John Heyman, Joel Sherman, all these different people. They're invading our space, okay? And that's difficult because some people don't realize that they feed you bullshit, okay? They don't tell you the whole story. They tell you part of the story because they work so closely with the teams, and the teams feed out information that they want out. They carry that message. A guy like me just tells you what I think, and I don't want any behind the scenes information. I don't need it, okay? Because a lot of it's bullshit, But like I said at the beginning of this video, nobody asked the fans, do you want to see the Commander's name change? Nobody said, do you want the Indians' name to change? Nobody asked, okay? And common sense has come back, and people online are saying, well, nobody asked us if we wanted the names changed. Nobody, I'm not an Indian fan, but if they said, we're going to change the name of your team, and they didn't even vote on it. They said, well, we'll give you choices. Do you want to keep the name? Make it the Guardians, the Spiders, the Nat, whatever it was. They never did that. They just changed it and that was it. Same thing with the Redskins. Nobody asked the fans. And they had such a great culture down there with the dog pound down there. And I guess they have their own dog pound, I guess. But they have such a wonderful culture down there with the Washington Redskins. There was no reason for them to change the name. No reason. Other than a few people that want to bully people. They want to censor you and shut you up. That's what it came down to. Well, you let me know what you think about this video. And of course, please hit the subscribe button on the football head. Very important. Trying to get this sucker going. So, thank you for watching, and I'll see you later.